Today on the table, I've got quite an old job to do. An Ipod Touch 4th generation. So I've been having that sit on my heat pad now, 60 degrees for quite some time. So I'm going to attempt to pry it open. And one thing I've definitely noticed on these models compared to newer models is how the glass fragments quite easily. So that would be the difference between the Gorilla Glass, I'm assuming, in different versions. Nowadays you could pry out one of these quite easily, but back in the day, or today, they like to shatter. So I'm just cleaning up the glass around the home button here, and then I'll proceed with removing the screen and the excess glass from there. What you'll need for this is usually a heat pad or a hairdryer, potentially isopropyl alcohol if you want to go down that path to soften the adhesive, a thin metal pry tool, a pair of tweezers, a small Phillips head screwdriver, and you should be able to do the majority of that with that. Potentially some frame glue or double-sided adhesive to put the new screen in with. So here I'm just still continuing to remove the glass. There is kind of like a small clear film under the glass on the body, so you may get lucky and be able to lift that up and peel off some of the glass fragments too. There we go, you can see it right there. That snapped on me. Now the screen's been disconnected up the top. And a fair bit of glass has remained stuck to the Wi-Fi antenna, which is a thin, soft film, or it's a soft bit of film that's held in by a single screw before it connects to the mainboard. But from here I'm just going to work around with a Phillips head screwdriver. Now, most of the screws are different. The two on the bottom are the same length. There's 3 on the side that you can see just near my hand. Those ones are the same size. And there's also a few up the top that are different again. So it is recommended to put them in the correct places that they came out of. Now I would also recommend taking out the screws at the very top of the screen, especially on that Wi-Fi antenna cable, because as you lift the mainboard out you do have the potential of damaging it. That's a small little bracket for the rear facing camera. Now I've just lifted it out just slightly so it doesn't get damaged, and there is 2 more screws in that location, one through the board and one just above the front facing camera. Go from here, I'm going to lift up the corner, and with the heat on the board itself, heat on the phone itself, I should be able to separate the metal shield from the mainboard and the battery. There we go. I'll put that aside. From here, I'm going to lift up there's an aluminum metal that's wrapped around the front, or the actual LCD connector, or the digitizer. So I've just disconnected that. And that's been pried off as well. I'm sorry, that's a pretty bad explanation on that there, but I'll proceed ahead. Now I should be able to lift up the board just here. I am just cleaning up some extra glass fragments off there. They're definitely stuck onto that antenna cable. So here I've just switched over to another, just a small Phillips head screwdriver, just to clean off the remaining shards of glass that are still attached to the frame. And mostly it's looking pretty good, but it's always best to go on the side of caution and redo it. Another technique that you could also use is using a toothbrush and just brush around the whole phone itself, just like this. And that should hopefully remove any particles of glass that you haven't actually spotted. So when you lay down the fresh new screen, you don't do any damage to it or the mainboard. So I'm going to cut away from this cleanup and just continue with the job. So let's say we've got the body all prepped now, you've got the new screen. What do you need to do? So I should be able to lift up the back of the screen just slightly, or the back of the board. And what we're wanting to do is slide in the connector from the top. So right now I've got the back of the phone, or back of the iPod, my finger, then the main board, and the flex connectors just getting jammed in between. So I do find that the majority of this comes down to feel. You should feel it snap in relatively well when or click in. If you're unsure of that, you should be able to hopefully also just push down on the connector or the main board with the connector connected, or what feels to be connected, and that should finish connecting the rest of the pins that are required. Just like that there. Next up, I'm going to connect up the display itself. So the touch panel is connected right now, and we'll connect up the display. Actually, before I do that, I'll put down some frame adhesive. So you'd probably use the opportunity here to either put down your glue or your double-sided tape. I find the double-sided tape that used to come with these screens to be quite crap. I usually threw it away in the end. You'd get the small pre-cut pieces that would normally go around the majority of the top and the bottom, but the actual stick of them was quite useless. So typically I replace that with just different stronger frame adhesive, or sorry, tape. Nowadays I'm definitely going to the frame adhesive method. So I'm just going to go around the whole body of it. Another recommendation would be to test out the display and the touch panel prior to fully reinstalling everything. So with the digitizer connected, you can connect up the display, power up the device, and do a quick touch around the screen just to make sure that new panel is functioning as it should. If it is, what I would do from there is proceed to put all the screws back in, and also the metal bracket, and then lastly connect up the display. I find the display on these ones to be relatively tricky, and they do like to pop off. Like this one, I fully completed the job, stuck it down, and hit the power button, and I got no display. But because the adhesive was still tacky, I was able to just open it up again, push down on the LCD connector once more, which I felt it click back into place, and then have glued it from there. And then from there it's been operating just fine. So from here I'm just going to let the video play out. But yeah, this is a Ipod 4th generation screen replacement done in 2020. Catch us later.